Welcome everyone. Namaste. Thank you for joining in today. Enfold is pleased to release the policy brief on mainstreaming gender, sexuality, and mental health in India's higher education. And drawing from our years of programmatic experience, research, engagement with students, educators, and institutions, the brief highlights why these issues cannot remain peripheral or ad hoc within the college and university systems. For the policy brief, TMI team has the Metropolitan Institute team has also supported us in writing these briefs. And to give you a brief about the Metropolitan Institute, it's a think and do tank that envisions a world of aspirational and resilient ecosystems. Registered as a Section 8 non-profit, TMI brings demonstrated experience across the government market and society, which they call Sarkar, Bazaar and Samaj, in the global south. TMI also focuses on enabling policy reform, driving development programs, strategizing philosophy, building capacity, and co-creating innovative and evidence-led solutions for social impact stakeholders. So, that is a little bit about Enfold and TMI. Just a few housekeeping rules before we start. Please mute yourself in case if you have any questions. Raise your hand or put your question in the chat box, and we will address the questions during the audience round. And
Sanjana, you're on mute.
Sanjana, we have lost your voice.
oh, okay, yeah. Just is it audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So just some housekeeping rules. Please mute yourself during the session. If you have any questions, raise your hands or please put your questions in the chat box and we'll come back to it during the audience question round. And also, we would be recording this video. So please do let us know if you don't have consent for recording the audio. You can text us or you can DM us, reach out to us separately as well. Apart from that, we will also be releasing the policy brief, which is there on our website. Khushi, can you put the link on our website? Yeah. Yes. To start the release, I invite Sonikuti George, who is the child protection specialist at UNICEF with over 2 decades of experience advancing child rights and protection in India. He has played a key role in strengthening child protection systems, contributing to national policies and programs on juvenile justice, alternative care, and protection from abuse and exploitation while working closely with government institutions and civil society partners. Sonikuti, I don't think this description can, encompass everything that you have done. And I know there was a personal emergency and still you could make it. So thank you so much. Over to you. Sonikuti, you're on mute.
No. Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you for the good and kind words. First of all, a big congratulations to the Enfold team and the TMI team for the kind of work that is done. Um, Naturally, the question is why is UNICEF's interest in this? I think the first and foremost, the most important thing is the SDG 4 education is one of the key areas where UNICEF is engaged, and SDG 5 is on gender equity, which actually tells us the reason and the importance of what we are doing. And I think the gender transformative education is actually a focus area for UNICEF's intervention. And as Enfold and TMI really work on evidence-based advocacy, and that's gender transformative education in this country requires not just advocacy, but policy positions, materials, and other support systems to make it a reality. Now, comprehensive sexuality education in India has been a big challenge. For multiple reasons, we have not been able to give this comprehensive sexuality education through our education system over the years. And introducing it higher education levels actually is the at a level of maturity, the adolescents are in a much better position to understand and to be able to pursue the what they learn in their lives. And this, I think, is very critical in Indian context, um, because what we are seeing is in early pregnancy issues, child marriage issues, what is happening on the personal care, the adolescent agency improvement. This is one critical dimension that is getting uh, needs to be addressed. And we also need to look at gender-based disparities in education, and consciousness building is completely the only solution to really look at this. Introducing and let people know about it is the starting point. And basically, the Indian society, in terms of the gender disparities, it is just not a question which can be addressed in school education or college education or higher education. It is something which is much more rooted in the social norms in this country, and therefore it is necessary. And the kind of work that is necessary becomes deep rooted in social norms, and therefore that consciousness building becomes very critical for the kind of change that UNICEF wants to see across. I think two other dimensions which needs to be added into this is the whole dimension of digital safety and education, because that is an emerging area which requires a lot more of focus. And this is one area where UNICEF is keenly interested and pursues its interest and tries to work on this one. And most happily, the whole dimension of mental health, the introduction of mental health in education policy. I think it is the whole education system. There is the flaw that we have. I think the maximum number of suicides happening in higher education levels, and the competitiveness and the kind of situations. And how do we really let the students grow up into balanced personalities who is able to deal with and cope with these challenges emerging today is a critical dimension. And that really positions the reason why this policy work is important. And I think, in terms of the kind of work that is happening across UNICEF's work in all these states, we are actively engaged in promoting these in the policy and programming dimensions, and do believe that this is one effective way of working on it. And I congratulate once more, congratulating the team for this great work, and wishing that we are able to really collectively work and make this difference. UNICEF believes in convergence, believes is rooted in working together with others, and we also trust that this catalytic role that can be played by UNICEF can go a long way in changing the lives of the youngsters and the adolescents. The, the change makers today are those people who are in that age and that way. And let us hope, and let's all commit ourselves, not just working on this policy, but making it a reality and pushing the agenda and making a difference in the lives of every child who is in India, and especially the youngsters who can be the change makers and as change makers. All the very best. And we are extremely happy and proud to have been part of this effort. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Soniji. I think you have been a huge support and throughout, and you have always mentioned that writing the policy brief is the starting step. What needs to happen has to happen on the ground. So thank you to you and for UNICEF for the constant support. And I think we have started the momentum on the ground for higher education. And on that note, I will move to thank you, Soni. Thank you so much again for being part of this huge. Thank you so much. And as we are talking about moving to from the policy brief from the paper to the ground, we had a very beautiful meeting with Ms. Serena Sonawal, who is the Joint Secretary of Higher Education. Ma'am is a 1994 batch Indian Information Service officer, serving as Joint Secretary in the Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, and she also acts as the convener of the National Task Force for Mental Health in Higher Education, directing service on student well-being and suicide prevention. Ma'am, it's an honor to have you, and after having an in-person meeting, I think you have been one of the most progressive people, government officials that we have seen, and your kindness and humility is something that will always stay with us. So thank you so much for being here. Would really like if you could say a few words.
On mute.
Yeah, ma'am, you're on mute.
Uh, Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you, Sangeeta ji, and all the guests who are participating online. I'm actually truly excited to be here in this online meeting. And before I speak, I'd just like to give you a background. So I have some point that I have jotted down, if that is okay. And how much time do I have? Roughly around 10 minutes, I believe, 7 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, the background is that, of course, you have said we are working on the mental health, national mental health. We have a capacity building program for well-being, resilience, and mental health of, well, capacity building, so that it's under the Maldiya Mission Teacher Training Program that we have this UGC conducts it, and we have these are online sessions for the faculty members who are working across our centrally funded institutions, because we do realize, having realized that the first gatekeeper should be the faculty. So the faculty at this point, we were when the incidences of suicides were rising, we thought that we should be also doing something. First is, how does the faculty in the institute respond? They, being the first responders, they should be able to see what are the signs, what are the signs of prevention. The counselors are there in the institution, but as the faculty, as the teacher, they should be the first point. They should realize what the student is facing. The kind of interaction, the mentor and the mentee system is there, the buddy and the student system is there. But then the first point is always the teacher and the peers around the teacher, around the student. That is what an inclusive campus is. Now, that is to start with. Now, for when you go into the statistics, the India's higher education system, we have roughly around 4.46 crore students, and it has from 2014-15 there has been a 30% growth in the enrollment, and here in the enrollment it is we have roughly around 2.18 crore of women in female students in the education sector, which is over again a 38% increase in the last decade. So the enrollment of women in the higher education sector is increasing gradually, and right now it stands, the GR of females stands at 30.2, and this has also consistently surpassed the male GR in the recent years. So this I'm quoting from the 2022-23 ICA statistics. Now, uh, apart from the women students, we have also, there have been uh, increase, in the marginalized groups. Where access has increased. We have 69 lakh for SC students, 29 lakhs for ST students, and 1.74 crore OBC students. And of course, across all sectors, again, female growth has increased substantially. The progress is also seen visibly in the PhD enrollment, which has nearly doubled from 2.33 lakhs in 2014-15, with female PhD enrollment rising by 35%, which also is signaling a growing presence of women in research and academic pathways, which is vital for strengthening our knowledge economy. There are gaps in STEM education. So we to supernumerary seats in the technical institutions. So we have been trying to increase female participation in STEM education, and however, we can say that in STEM education we have one of the highest enrollment of women. in STEM education, which is around 29.2%. In higher education institutions, there are challenges of gender bias. All of us know about it. There is discrimination. We have stress. There is stigma around mental health and the marginalization of the diverse identities. When one enters a campus, when a student enters the higher education campus straight from the school, the student has more kind of distractions in the campus. He is not in that safe space of the home. Most of the students come outside of their home to live in the hostels, in PGs. So here it is very important that our educational institutions become safe campuses, safe and inclusive campuses. And the rising number of suicides that we see is around the data shows that there is 11 out of every 100 adults in India live with diagnosable mental health disorder. This number is huge, 11% roughly, and nearly 15% require mental health intervention. And here, the student suicides have risen by 65% from 8,423 in 2013 to 13,892 in 2023. Here, the Supreme Court has also taken cognizance of the increasing suicides in educational institutions, and how there is a committee which has been constituted, which is looking into how they can, how students can cope with trauma and mental health stress in the institutions in view of the academic stress or whatever. I mean, the mental health reasons, could be for uh, there are very number of reasons. It could be too much of expectations from guardians, too much of expectation, self expectations, and of course, academic pressure is we cannot sort of leave out academic stress in high performing institutions. Now, if we do not address these challenges, uh, this will only increase. The stress levels of institutions will increase, and this will be only perpetuated. And therefore, institutions should be able to handle these cases of emotion of stress that are being seen in students. Now, why is mainstreaming of gender a requirement, a necessity? Now, when we see that we need to mainstream genders and their uh, look into their well-being, it is not just a welfare concern, but it is the foundation of national development. You can see that the economic surveys of 24 and 25 have also looked into the mental health uh, as a requirement for productivity, for increasing our economic wealth. So the surveys have also said that mental health is a crucial part, and we need to look into the mental health aspects of our youth who will be contributing to the economy of the country. Now, NEP 2020 itself has emphasized supportive campuses. The National Suicide Prevention Strategy identifies suicide as preventable and uh, calls for coordinated institutional action, and recent judicial directives have also mandated counseling infrastructure. So there should be guidelines for every institution should be having a guideline. UGC is working on mental health guidelines. They're all on the website. So if any of you would want to give your suggestions to the guidelines that UGC has on its website, you may do so, because these will be then circulated to all the institutions after having given them as a framework to all the institutions, because not all institutions will be having the mental health counselors. Smaller institutions may not be able to sort of engage. So what is the kind of system that can be created for sharing resource pool in a geographical area, coming together of institutions for uh, creating that space where every student can uh, get help. So these are the things in which we are working at. And when we say Is anybody wanting to say something? No. So these are the challenges, and because I've already said, uh, institutions do not have adequate, uh, infrastructure. So that is where I think organizations like Enfold can come in and work in those areas. So because in a last meeting with Sangeeta ji and Sanjana, so we did say that this is a huge space now. This is something where the all our institutions, all our students need this, and with the there is reduced stigma. Nowadays, students seek help, without saying that because there's no stigma attached to it. I think that is where the more and more students come out and say that they need help. It's not whatever, just talk. We're just talking helps a student. So these are so counseling helps in that sense that you know. Uh, Students can reach out. Psychiatric help is different. That is when you need medicine and other such interventions. But counselors, to a great extent, will give that safe, inclusive environment to educational institutions. Now, when we talk about, so what exactly, how do we move forward? Uh, we have been sort of uh, what we are saying is that we have been dealing with such incidences only when they happen. So we need to go from crisis to prevention. So not only reacting when there is a crisis, but then work towards prevention. How do we prevent? Work towards prevention by institutions should proactively build the resilience system into their framework, into their education institution. They should institutionalize it, then individual to a shared responsibility. It is not just that I have a problem, I go to a counselor. That is where the whole of the institution approach works. The faculty, the non-faculty, the peers, they all work together, helping out each other. And then from late to early identification. So as I had told you earlier, we have this program on capacity building. So this is, in a small way, we have started an online program for our faculty, where faculty are being sort of, made, are sensitized, made aware that these are the warning signs. We have a team of psychologists and psychiatrists and also educators from different educational institutions who have been interacting with faculty. And then faculty, then of course, have said that these are the signs I have seen my students. Some of the students have these sort of, they are behaving in this particular manner. So we will look into such cases. So this is where these are small incidents, where incidences, where our faculty members can really work as gatekeepers and be able to prevent such situations of suicides. Right now, there was this recent incident of suicide in IIT Kanpur. So there too, a committee has been constituted. So it is not, so here suicide cases do not mean something that is the last case. So how is it that we can, sort of prevent such incidences? Uh, Maybe a little help from our side, a little kind of sympathy, empathy towards such students can help in prevention of such incidences. Now, here, the role of digital support can be is a great can be used for interventions. Where students are unwilling to go in for uh, face-to-face counseling, they can use apps. If there are anything which or online appointments, some people may not be able in that frame of mind to go. Also, it gives some kind of anonymity to online sessions. So depending on what the students want, so these are all. These should all be made available, and ultimately, it is the institution, it is a collective responsibility to make our institutions, campuses very safe, secure, inclusive, and uh, an understanding institution where all students can be reached out where students are able to speak freely if they have a problem. They should be able to. So that kind of environment needs to be created in our educational institutions. And here at the Ministry of Education, you are all professionals working in the field. We would, speak, as Enfold has come to us, we would be, the more people come on board and help us, because it's not, we have close to 60,000 institutions in the country. So that is a huge number. And now more and more students in schools, this gender teaching and mental health. So these are all from the school to the higher as students come forward, come up to the higher education centers. So now we are uh, gradually in the space of learning, and then we have realized that it is something that we need to build it in our ecosystem, give if possible, making mental health learning gives credits for students so that from the first year itself of college they can. So I think your policy briefs, I've seen those. Uh, I think those small uh, notes for the teachers. There, it is for the teacher. It should be for the student as well. They were very interesting. The ones you had shown last time when you had come. So I believe something of that sort. That those were for the school level. So maybe something for higher education, some kind of ready reckoner or handbook, which students and even teachers can turn to. That this is what I need to do, and of course, bringing in life skills into the curriculum. So this is in brief what I have been talking about. I'm not speaking from my prepared text, so uh, I'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think
Thank
these
you.
are incredible insights from you. And I like what you said about collective efforts. It's not just the onus of the government to make all of these changes, but the entire ecosystem has to come together and support each other. Because ultimately, we can't really expect, Viksit Bharat without mainstreaming all of this into the education. Yes, so thank you so much for doing that. And also, as ma'am has said, I think the initiatives around mental health has been commendable. So we would also request the participants to please go through the link at the UGC website and please provide your inputs. That's the least that we can do when the government is taking such an important step. So please do reach out and do that. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights. And we will be echoing some of your thoughts and the roadmap for UGC maybe in our presentation. So, and there are also questions in the chat box for you. It's already started, but we will be either you can respond it in the chat box, or you can answer it during the question answer session.
Subramanian
Thank you so much. Karthik, can you please see if Subramanian ji has joined? He's trying to join in.
I don't see him, Sanjana.
Introduce him.
Okay. Okay. So Subramanian ji is interviewing while it's here.
No, I have been sending you this Google Meet link. Please join that because it's okay. Yeah, there was a little confusion.
Yeah.
So while we wait for Dr. Subramanian,
There he is.
hello, Subramanian ji. Thank
Hi,
you so
hi,
much.
Sanjana. Hi, Sanjana. Yeah.
Sorry for the confusion. We had the Zoom link, so you were on the. But thank you so much for joining in. To introduce Subramanian, he's a retired IS officer of the 1985 batch with over 30 years of experience in the public service. And as the former secretary to the Government of India, he has led key national portfolios, including higher education, social justice, and played a significant role in shaping the National Education Policy 2020. And his work also spans throughout education, rural development, poverty alleviation, and social sector reforms. And he continues to contribute to policy research and advisory initiatives post-retirement. Currently, he is the CEO of Chris organization. Thank you so much, Subramanianji, for joining in and for being a supporter of the work that we have been doing and guiding us with different steps on how to implement this into higher education. So I also want to, Miss Reena Sonowal just spoke about lifting efforts.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Rina. So great
Hello,
to
sir. How are you, sir?
great to see you. Yeah,
Nice to see you, sir.
yeah, nice.
Thank you.
Yes. Sir, with your extensive experience in this field and the intersectionality of the work that you have done, I think it'll be very insightful for us to hear your thoughts on mainstreaming gender, sexuality, and mental health in higher education in India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. And of course, Rina is sitting there, and of course, she is going to be the main person who will support and drive this. And she is one of the great officers we work with in the ministry. So, friends, I just wanted to, compliment this entire team. This is a sensitive topic, though extremely important. Sangeeta ji had come over, and we had a fairly detailed discussion on the way forward. A lot of good material has been developed. So here, this is a topic which needs to get into the academic mainstream. See, because the schools are the places where the children pick up a lot, not necessarily in the classrooms, but in the school premises, they do pick up a lot of their social and social behavior, and also their attitudes, mental attitudes. So therefore, it has to get into the mainstream of the academic functioning. But so considering the sensitivity, we have seen, Rinaji, you would have seen the modules which are developed on health promoting campuses. I don't know whether you have seen that Dr. Rajiv Eravadekar, that is from the Symbiosis. So he has actually developed a lot of his basic thesis has been that you approach the mental health and also good behavior issues, gender sensitization issues, sexuality, not as a direct input, but you actually build it around a health promoting sort of a behavior. So that is something which can actually come onto the mainstream of the academics. Health promoting campuses. He has actually developed. If you want, Rajiv, you can call Rajiv. He will be happy to bring that. They have developed the entire curriculum on this. Similarly, in social justice ministry, we have developed what is called a Navchetana module. So this is about substance abuse. This again doesn't go as a suppose if I give a sermon saying that substance abuse is bad for health and all that, nobody is going to listen, right? So it actually builds this particular theme through more non-invasive and more acceptable sort of stories, parables, activities. So that is a sort of a pedagogy that we need to adopt in order to take this forward. So therefore, I'm saying two things. One is that the commitment of the government to take it on scale is essential. One, and second thing is that the material itself has to be skillfully done, and it cannot be just a direct input of material to the students. It will not work. So these two, therefore, Sangeeta ji and her team can actually work on. I'm sure they are doing a lot of work on this, but how do you actually weave this in a non-threatening manner, non-invasive manner into the student mind? Is the second thing. Third thing that I would like to, I have suggested to Sangeeta ji when she met, is it possible to create a direct to student sort of a behavior using a lot of social media content? Reena ji, you will know that that the entire Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, which was done by social justice, is completely based on a social media campaign. But it is not just a social media campaign. Social media campaign actually gains a direct access to the student, but then on that would build student clubs, activities which are recognized, which are competitions which will happen. So a lot of activity gets built up around the social media content. I was suggesting that we should actually think in terms of developing a very brief, direct social media content which can go to the students, and then subsequently build a lot of activity around that. So that sort of an approach will probably help in this. I am very happy that this team of committed people who have actually brought this in. I know some of them have actually devoted a fairly almost a lifetime in this particular fields. So I wish all the very best, and whatever help that we can do. Rinaji, of course, is sitting at the top of the pyramid. We are sitting at the bottom of the pyramid.
So, please, sir.
So,
Not at all, sir. You have led this department. You have been at the very top, so you have seen how it works. So, with the support, I think, with,
yeah.
from organizations like yours, like Enfield, I think that it is be possible only then, sir.
Absolutely. So I'm only saying that the government at the top and the organizations which are actually working with the state governments like ours, and then expert organizations like Enfield, Enfold and all that. There is a need for a national effort in carrying these messages to the people, because it's a huge effort. So it cannot be done only by government. It can't be done only by institutions, nor only by the NGOs or experts. It has to be joint effort. So I really call upon for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Subramanianji, and we completely echo your, thoughts about the collective wisdom that needs to come together. It's and Ms. Reena Sonowal also stressed that every institution, every stakeholder has to come together to build this. It's not one person's job. And also about the social media, as most of the youths are on social media nowadays, and how the pop culture, everything is changing the mindset. Maybe a child might not have a textbook, but they might have a smartphone in their hands. So we really need to utilize this and tap on this to, sensitize students around this. And we would be in our PPT, we will be talking about the issues and also some of the recommendations that we have for UGC. But thank you so much, Subramanianji. I think your guidance has been quite helpful for us, and we have started to build a framework for universities, and we've started conversation with different universities to implement an online course, and with different graded and level-wise themes under these three components, and in which we have also included digital safety and mental health as one of the key themes. And we would love to share it with Reena Sonowal ma'am and Subramanianji for your thoughts as well. Thank you so much. Moving on to the presentation. So Karthik, who is the founder of the Metropolitan Institute, and we would be presenting some of the key findings from the policy brief. So stay tuned. And there are also questions and suggestions in the chat box. So in the meantime, if you want, you could also answer those, or we can take it up during the audience session. Karthik, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not yet. I can't see the. Can you? You need to put the. Is it in the animation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjana, for setting context, and Soni Kotti ji, Reena ji, and Subramaniam ji for sharing your pearls of wisdom. I'll quickly start. I think as Reena ji you just mentioned, and Soni Kotti ji earlier mentioned as well, there's some wonderful UGC reforms that have recently come in on these areas. But I'll start at this unique juncture where India is today. Especially, I mean, if we look at the historical context, right from the Gurukul context to Charak Samhita to our various ancient texts, there has always been a recognition of multiple gender identities, including terms such as Manas, Adi. So Manas referring to the mind, Adi referring to mental illnesses, Manas Vyadi referring to how can we approach mental illnesses. So even ancient Indian education has always included mental health as well as many parts of sexuality in its discourse. However, we see a gap today, especially in modern campuses. There's kind of a silence, and the goal of bringing these briefs is to break that silence. We argue that to empower the youth of Bharat, we must mainstream three interconnected pillars: gender, sexuality, and mental health. And that's the premise. I think under Reena ji and under UGC, we recently saw with the 2016 reforms that came in that all higher institutions now have to have an internal complaints committee. There's a platform called Saksham. They have been mandated to have qualified counselors. There is a national task force on students' mental health. However, despite this, there are some alarming, you know,
Karthik,
uh,
sorry
uh,
to intervene. Can you change your slide? Is not changing. Can you?
yeah. Despite this, there are some alarming challenges with respect to safety and well-being today. It's tripartite, as we can see. And what we found was some alarming statistics. There were high rates of sexual harassment in Indian campuses. A recent study in Delhi University found um, that 1 in 4 women actually experience sexual harassment. And the even more alarming fact is that 40% of these cases, at least, go underreported. Secondly, we found that there's a mental health emergency, especially amongst young men, to the point that the numbers come up to 72.5% of all suicides in India are just young men. And this rate has grown above 65% from 2014 onwards. Third, we found through a study that we'll be talking about later, is that there's a huge gap in sexuality education across all streams of higher education in India. Uh, and while policies such as the National Education Policy and the UGC reforms of 2015-16 have actually like talked about including them, the practice does see a long way to go. To study this, we went to the ground. We tried to capture this from multiple angles to understand what really is happening. We did a needs assessment with over 153 students across 24 campuses. We did focus group discussions at MNLU and NALSAR. We did curriculum review of the model UGC curricula, which included all courses from STEM, psychology, law, social work, amongst 30 others. We did expert interviews, including folks from government, from think tanks, from expert organizations, child right organizations, etc. We benchmarked the curricula and what we found against UNESCO's international technical standards for sexuality education. And then to sum it all, we collated the data, we brought it together, and we studied the various government policies, speeches, schemes, initiatives, including Supreme Court judgments that have a huge implication, and the UGC mandates that apply on higher education institutes. And this is what we found essentially. We saw that the curriculum has a lot of gaps. So we have tried to categorize it across like strong coverage, moderate, minimal, and absent. There were a total of 8 domains that UNESCO categorizes, and courses that include at least 6. We've called them strong in terms of coverage. We found that areas such as women's studies, psychology do cover aspects of sexuality, do cover aspects of mental health. However, there are many other courses, including the ones that we think will cover this topic in much more detail, such as law or population studies, economics, that only study the technical part of these topics and not necessarily the notional, the ground reality, etc. For example, even topics such as law, we found out that a lot of legal universities do have a topic on gender studies. However, the framework is only stuck to legal. Similarly, in economics and public administration, etc. Um, so this was the curriculum level findings. Then we did needs assessment across students. And we tried to cover universities across the country, across courses. And what we found out was students overwhelmingly actually categorize comprehensive sexuality as an important topic. About 86% of all students. So there is a huge demand for these courses. And to the point that a lot of students actually even ask for a mandatory course, similar to, say, environmental studies that happens in many universities. However, the opinion on whether it should be credited or not was mixed. And the top requested topics, as you can see on the screen, are laws related to sexuality, gender, violence, sexual violence against adults, against children, reproductive health, media, digital spaces. There's a much bigger list as well. We have just listed the top five, but what we saw was there's a huge demand for this. Even across group discussions, we found that students do appreciate the technical understanding that is being brought in by universities. However, the understanding remains only technical and not comprehensive and holistic. So that was the findings from the student side. Moving ahead. So I think the promising thing to take away here was while there's a huge gap in the curricula that we saw, there's a huge demand for uptake for courses across the three pillars that we spoke about. So that's the promise I want to take away with and pass it on to Sanjana to talk about what are we proposing here. Sanjana, over to you.
Thank you, Karthik. So after listening to students and reviewing curricula and speaking to experts, we asked ourselves that if a university truly wants to prepare a young adult for life and not just for exams and address these issues, what can they do and how? And this actually led us to, this question led us to these three pillars. The pillar one is gender equity. Imagine a senior student making an inappropriate comment towards a junior student, and other students are witnessing it. Many students freeze, not because they don't care or there's apathy, but because they're unsure. Is this harassment? Should I intervene? What are the rules? So, gender equity education helps students understand gender roles and stereotypes, power dynamics, diverse gender and sexual identities, boundaries, legal literacy like POSH, students' rights, and institutional protection. And importantly, this is also aligned with UGC's 2015 regulations on prevention of sexual harassment, which is a lot when, like, the cases that come out are majorly of women. But what about transgender students, or what about students with disabilities? I think those voices are somewhere, they phase out in our interventions. But gender equity education, which will ensure gender sensitization in the campus and not just restrict itself to complaint committee. And these pillars shifts students from silent witness to responsible community members and colleagues and friends. Moving to the second pillar, comprehensive sexuality education. This term itself is more, commonly misunderstood. But this is not about CSC, is not about promoting behavior. It is about safety, dignity, and informed decision making at a stage when young people are already making critical life choices. Consider a common campus reality, and this is one of the situations that has happened. It's a reality, but we're not mentioning the name of the person, and change the age group also. So a 17-year-old college student during COVID. So we're going back to COVID because the impact of COVID is still there. We can't really remove it from our history and from our current experience. So this 17-year-old college student, she comes from a marginalized family. Her father lost his job, and her mother got really sick. So they forced her to marry a 20-year-old man. He exploits her body, and she cannot understand what's happening to her. Within months, she finds that she's pregnant. And it's not by her choice, but because she was not given information about safety or about contraceptives or about her legal rights. So without any guidance at home or colleges, she drops out mid-course. Her education ends. And that's not because there is lack of potential in the child, but there's lack of information and support from the system and from home and from the caregivers and from the teachers. And during COVID also, as I said, the impact is still there. There were young girls who could not even reach to college. They dropped out midway, they dropped out in high schools, And they, in slum communities at the margins where we had worked, there were young girls who had gotten into prostitution. During COVID, they were selling their bodies for 100 rupees, 150 rupees. So when we are talking about CSC or gender, we are also looking at the intersection of caste, religion, disabilities, because these are the children, these are the adults who are actually at the margins. So one cannot look at these frameworks or these pillars without looking at the intersectionality of it. And we also see students entering into relationships without language around consent or boundaries. Personal photos are shared in trust, or when relationship breaks down, some face threats, and many remain silent or stay in unsafe situation out of fear, shame, blame, or judgment, often linked to low self-esteem and body insecurity. So CSC directly addresses these realities. And importantly, as Karthik also stressed, this is something that the students have, asked for in our need assessment. They specifically requested learning on consent, relationship laws, digital safety, because they're already navigating these situations, but without any structured guidance. And this is what we have spoken, that with the mental health, guideline and the other interventions, maybe there could be a structure to our intervention. And again, CSC also directly links with NAP, emphasizing on life skills. This is an important life skill, and gender sensitivity and inclusive education. Talking about mental well-being, I think Ms. Reena ma'am has spoken a lot about the interventions that we are doing, and she also spoke about the challenges, which is actually the reality, and which we have seen repeatedly in places like Kota, where students preparing for competitive exams have died by suicide under extreme academic stress. And this is the situation that comes up every year. And similar pressure exists in colleges. Exam performance anxiety, fear of failure, body image issues, bullying, ragging, isolation. And children do feel that they're isolated when it comes to all of these experiences. So mental well-being education helps students in understanding and regulating the emotions, building healthy coping strategies, and seeking help early. Also recognizing how they can navigate these situations as adults. The UGC's recent emphasis on students' mental health, including the directions for counseling support, which Ms. Reena ma'am also talked about, and National Task Force, shows that this is already a policy priority. So I think the next step is to put it from paper to the ground. And lastly, but not the least, we are also recommending in all of these interventions to have a restorative approach. Now, restorative approach is difficult to explain in theory. It is best understood when you're part of the circle, when you're part of that entire ecosystem. But we will try. So, in many systems, the first question is who is guilty? What is the punishment for this person? However, restorative approaches ask who has been harmed, what do they need, and how do we repair trust? So rather than vilifying the person, we vilify the act and say, how do we move forward from that? How do we support the person who has been harmed? And how do we make sure that the person who has caused the harm can take responsibility, accountability? For example, in cases of ragging or bullying situations, dialogues where those who caused harm understand the real consequences of their actions and not just put into jail or just vilified, but they truly understand the consequences instead of only facing punishment. And this approach does not remove accountability, it just builds on it, deepens it, and also builds empathy and relationships. So this is the framework that we want to propose. Now, how do we go about it? This is one of the areas that we wanted to suggest. Karthik, can you? Yes. So one is that under its authority in the UGC Act 1956, the UGC can give a mandate to suggest, a credit-bearing or non-credit course, whatever works as to start with for undergraduate and postgraduate courses. And we can begin with piloting in some institution, which Ms. Reena Sonowal ma'am also suggested, and Dr. Subramaniam ji also suggested about that we pilot with a few institutions and then we scale it across gradually across different universities. And to now about the curriculum, the content about it, the brief recommends that we can partner with subject matters expert, civil society organizations, and institutions that have already run such programs to design a core curriculum that can be adapted to different institutional contexts. We are nowhere saying that we just replicate the same curriculum in all the institutions because the context can be very different in each of the institutions. And Dr. Shakila is here with us. She would be speaking about how they have implemented this course in their universities, which is one of the institutions which has actually implemented it at the institution level. The next step is, as Ms. Reena ji also suggested and emphasized, that teachers are the backbone of the program. Without we make the teachers prepared for this course, I don't think the implementation can happen smoothly. So faculty needs structured training and support to handle sensitive themes and facilitate participatory reflective learning processes. Now, let's look at the impact of it. I think there are enough and more studies and evidences that have shown the impact of it, the result of this education into the system. And few of the things that students gain when this framework is inculcated in the campus: practical skills in communication, consent, boundary settings, relationship, understanding their own bodies to start with, better emotional awareness, help seeking behavior, greater confidence to intervene as responsible bystanders. And research also shows that preventive education improves knowledge, attitude, safety behaviors, and relationship skills, which are all also linked to employability and leadership competencies. So we are not just talking about improving, the well-being of students, but we are also saying that this will enhance their employability as well. How, like a lawyer working on, child abuse cases, if they do not understand the nuances of child safety or to do it in a trauma-informed way, can they be, there is a possibility that more harm is caused to the child in the process of it. So we are not just suggesting this for social studies students, but for all the streams. And at the society level also, we are not just shaping the graduates, we are also shaping future leaders, policy makers, decision makers, and families and community members. And this supports all of this framework that we have spoken about. This supports commitment under NEP 2020 and also SDG 4.7, which is education for quality, dignity, and well-being. So at the end, I would just like to close it by saying that, if we teach physics, law, engineering without teaching young adults how to navigate power relationships, emotional well-being, we leave a critical gap. And it's high time that we also not just think in terms of binaries, but we also look at the spectrum of all the adults that need this education, which also includes transgender adults, adults with different sexual identities, adults with disabilities. So I think all of that needs to encompass in this. So we are proposing the foundation for safe campuses, emotionally resilient youth, and responsible citizens. So, and if higher education shapes the future of Bharat, then this is not an optional reform. This is imperative for Viksit Bharat to happen. Thank you. I'll stop here. I know there are questions in the chat box. We will take the questions during the audience round. But for now, we will move on. Please do write down your questions in the chat box or any comments that you might have for this. I do see some hands raised, but I'm so sorry. Because of the lack of time, if you could just put it in the chat box and then we can take up this during the question answer session. Moving forward, we have, as I mentioned in my as I mentioned in my presentation, that Dr. Shakila's institute has adopted this course into their institution. Dr. Shakila Singh is a senior lecturer in gender education at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Durban. Her areas of teaching and research include gender, sexuality, gender and health, and gender violence at universities. Dr. Shakila has been guiding us as to the what are the challenges that they have faced in the implementation as they've already done it, what are the components that they have put in their course. So, Dr. Shakila, very happy and it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think you will give us some practical tips as to how do we go about implementing this in universities.
Please
Over to you, Dr.
unmute
Shakila.
and to switch on her video.
Dr. Shakila, are you there?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important conversation. You're hearing me, right?
Yes, but we can't see you, Shakila.
Okay, I'm just going to briefly put it so that you'll see it is me, and then I'm going to turn it off if that's okay.
Yes.
So here you are. It is me. It's not AI generated, but I'm going to turn it off because I'm not in a comfortable environment. Okay. So we developed a mandatory module for first-year university students at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. And I will share the rationale, design, and the pedagogical approach of the module that we named Critical Social Justice and Citizenship. The module was proposed and developed by a gender-based violence task team in the College of Humanities in direct response to South Africa's ongoing social challenges, in particular gender-based violence, but also broader and deeply entrenched forms of inequality that impact our students and society, and connects closely to the three pillars that Sanjana has presented in your proposed framework. Central to the successful development and institutionalization and scaling of this module was the active sponsorship of senior university leadership, which provided both strategic direction and institutional authority necessary to embed this initiative across the colleges and to ensure its sustainability. So having people in powerful positions to believe in this is very important. So we began with the recognition that student well-being is shaped not only by support services, but by what and how students learn, and that social injustices, gender-based violence, racism, xenophobia, and exclusion directly impact students' emotional, mental, and physical well-being. And while these issues are often discussed in public discourse, they are not always meaningfully engaged within formal curricula. And this module has a strong gender and sexuality focus and provides a structured space for students to engage with lived experiences of inequality. It also validates students' identities and experiences, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds and groups, and enhances students' sense of belonging, visibility, and inclusion within the university and broader society. It was first piloted in 2003 in the College of Humanities, because that's where the gender-based task team was located. And that was our initial idea. But in 2004, it expanded significantly, enrolling over 5,200 students with a completion rate of more than 78%. It is now firmly embedded in our curricula and is offered across the entire university, which is 5 colleges, including humanities, science, health sciences, agriculture, engineering and science, and law and management studies. This scale reflects both the institutional commitment and the recognition that social justice concerns cut across all disciplines. So it's a compulsory module for all first-year students and extended programs. Our initial challenge, as I had shared with Sanjana and team, was to convince the various college boards of the relevance of such a module and the need for it to be compulsory. And this relates to Ashika's question in the chat about um, engineering and STEM subjects, and how and where people think that social issues should be. Overall, there was consensus that students would benefit from such an academic intervention, with the main challenge being how to include it as compulsory within existing structured programs that have a particular credit score. So as to not to overload the credits, the concern was that something would have to be moved, excluded, to make space for a new module. So we had to go the route of introducing it as a non-credit bearing module, but that students must pass it in order to complete their degree. So the module has some generic aspects for all students across the university, and then some specific discipline-specific aspects. And the general consensus is that it complements existing modules within the range of programs offered at all colleges at the university. The teaching and learning approach is one of blended, which consists of pre-recorded online lectures that students would need to view in their own time and as many times as they please. And that's paired with in-person tutorials of small groups, approximately 30 students each. And the tutorials are facilitated by tutors who hold master's or doctoral qualifications in social justice related fields and who receive, extensive training and mentoring throughout. While lectures pre-recorded by discipline experts provide the conceptual grounding, the tutorials are the primary sites of transformation. And these are not just supplementary, but central to the module's pedagogical design. In these spaces, students are encouraged to share personal experiences and narratives, to reflect on how they've been taught to be and see others in relation to gender, race, class, sexuality, ability, and so forth. And through this process, students begin to recognize the extent to which many of the assumptions they hold about themselves and others are socially produced or natural or inevitable. And the approach is to acknowledge that difficult conversations can initially cause discomfort and guide students from awareness to critique to responsibility, and prevent disengagement by offering constructive frameworks for understanding social realities. Importantly, learning in this module is understood not only as the acquisition of new knowledge, but also as a process of unlearning prejudices. The curriculum itself is structured in progression. It begins with themes of difference and otherness and moves through power relations, race, gender, sexuality, gender-based violence, and concludes with questions of resistance, activism, and responsible nonviolent citizenship. This module, based on our context, adopts a decolonial and Afrocentric lens, making use of contextually relevant examples and local case studies. These are at first year level and intentionally avoid overly theoretical, abstract, or inaccessible language. And while lectures are currently offered in English, the work is underway to provide isiZulu translations, which is the main in the area, further enhancing accessibility and inclusivity. Overall, this module emphasizes reflection, deep engagement, ethical responsibility, and collective action. And student feedback has been mainly positive. Students have commented on how their learning in the module supports their well-being and a sense of purpose and social agency, which moves them from feeling victimized or overwhelmed to of response and contribution. Thanks, Sanjana.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shakila. I think the work, yes, the work that you're doing is quite groundbreaking, and I think you're personally invested, in this course and also to take it forward. So many congratulations to you, and we would keep nudging you and bothering you to to take your guidance on how do we implement it. which is also contextual to the Indian setting. But thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your insights. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have Dr. Aditi, who has 14 years of combined experience in the design, delivery, and evaluation of educational programs, medical education, teacher education, life skills, gender, citizenship education, and careers in India, and in the US and China. And currently, she teaches at Christ University in the psychology department. Dr. Aditi has also worked closely with us and has been, very like a champion for us to implement some of the materials courses in the Christ University. And she has also done amazing work in Rajasthan and has done, a lot of impactful work on gender in that space. And she continues to do it in the campus as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Aditi, for coming in. I know you were in the middle of a class and, try to jump in. So thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you, Sanjana, and thank you to Enfold, UNICEF, and the Metropolitan Institute for bringing forward this important and timely policy brief. I think what struck me about the document is that it treats higher education as a site of prevention. And it recognizes universities are not neutral spaces, but are important spaces where young people understand safety, dignity, relationships, and well-being. And I think it's really important to think of it as a site of prevention, because usually in higher education institutions, it tends to be reactive after harm has occurred through compliant mechanisms, disciplinary processes, or counseling services. So while those are essential, it's really important that we use education as a preventive tool. So I think it's great from that front. I really appreciated the brief's analysis of the UGC model curricula across disciplines. I think it's a major contribution. It shows us that while elements of gender, sexuality, and mental health exist in pockets, there is no shared framework that reaches all students. And some disciplines carry these conversations more, whereas others remain largely untouched. And so I think that came out quite strongly in the brief. The focus on violence prevention is particularly important in the Indian context because of as the brief pointed out, because of underreporting and silence around harm on campuses. So I appreciated that the brief, but at the same time, I appreciated that the brief is not only limiting it to violence prevention, but also acknowledges other frameworks such as pleasure affirming and sex positive approaches, because we need to go beyond violence and prevention, and it has to move towards more promotive approaches, reminding us that safety is not the end goal, but the starting point for healthy and dignified lives. I think an important insight from the brief is that institutions and educators need to be transformed and not just curricula. So teachers and administrators need to be engaged in meaningful conversations, because in my experience, it's the teachers who are more, hesitant about taking up issues such as sex education. And so it's really important to speak to teachers and having honest conversation. If that is not done, then no matter how well the course is designed, and even if it's mandatory, it can just become something which is symbolic, that exists on paper but does not change the campus culture. So therefore, pedagogy becomes really important, and it has to be discussion based, because I've seen in value based curricula in higher education, it ends up becoming a checklist or a checkbox and does not become meaningful. And so, so in bringing in institutional change and cultural change is really crucial. I wanted to also appreciate the emphasis on mental health. And it's also important to recognize mental health not as an individual issue, but a structural issue. And this is coming up quite a bit in higher education in the Indian context, because higher education institutions very often contribute to stress and vulnerability. So one of the and mental health is seen as a matter of coping with stress, and it has to go beyond that. It has to be seen as a structural issue. So in this context, the brief's proposal to adopt a restorative approach Sorry, I'm sorry. I did the light. Yeah, sorry about that. So a restrictive approach is very promising because it emphasizes accountability, repair, and community well-being rather than only punishment. But restorative approaches will become effective only when we move towards a trust-based approach that requires deep cultural change. Indian higher education institutions, unfortunately, are often very hierarchical and operate in conditions of trust deficit. And so there is there's a mismatch over there. And so a restorative approach will work only when institutions also change their structure. So it's going to be a challenge, and I think it would be interesting to see how that plays out. And lastly, I think I wanted to kind of bring up the issue of, the recent UGC related guidelines around discrimination in higher education with a focus on caste discrimination has been recently come up, and it is and there has been a lot of backlash against it. And we need to think of gender-based violence also in relation to it cannot be separated from caste and social hierarchy. In India, sexual violence has historically been used to assert caste dominance as well. So current debates that are happening around caste discrimination and around changing higher educational structures, right? Not just a curriculum, but it's changing it structurally. I think this is an important conversation to have with it has to be in dialogue with that policy as well. And related to that, I noticed that in the policy brief, I understand that we have to speak to governments, and so sometimes I feel that when we speak about Indian traditions or local traditions, we have to speak of it in uncritical ways. For example, panchayat may be a good talks about dialogue, but khapa and panchayats are also implicated in honor killing. So I think some of the packaging which is might be about drawing from Hindu scriptures and all, I would also suggest that that might be a little bit romanticized, but I understand sometimes that needs to be done. Yeah, so to conclude, this policy brief does more than propose a new course. It asks us to reflect on what our higher education institutions produce, not only in terms of degrees, but in terms of safety, dignity, and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Aditi, and thank you for giving us an honest feedback on the brief. And what you said about the pedagogy has to be, more engaging and fun, and doesn't have to be restricted to the didactic mode of teaching. So it has to engage young students, and it has to ensure that we are also looking at the structural gaps that are there, and also look at the intersectionality of the students who are coming to the campus. One shoes fit all cannot happen in these situations, especially when we are talking about themes like gender and sexuality. Like there are so many layers to it that just one solution cannot be just replicated blindly. So thank you so much for bringing these insights, and hope to meet you soon. And thank you. Dr.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I see that people have raised their hands and they've also put questions. Please, we have the last presentation, which I'm personally very excited for. And after that presentation, we will take up your questions. Yes, in the meantime, you can put it in the chat box. So our next speaker is Prahlad AP. He's a passionate law student at MLSIU, and he founded the Pride Jam Circle, ex-Rotarian, and currently interning at the All Inclusive Foundation. And Prahlad, I must say, is a very dynamic person. So I'm very excited. He has interned with Enfold and has a lot of engagement and a lot of insightful things to say. So over to you, Prahlad. Really looking.
Thank you, Sanjana. I'd like to start off by thanking Enfold for giving me the space to give the students' perspective as to what the current status quo is. So I'd like to start off by asking everybody, where are we right now in terms of students' both sexual health as well as mental well-being? In a world wherein students' very autonomy is threatened from the moment they walk through the front gates of a higher educational institution, in a system where that manages to sneak conformity into every crevice of the human existence, we find 20-year-old adults asking for permission to urinate. Full-fledged adults whose length of hair, skirt, pants, blouse, whatever we choose to wear is policed to the point of total helplessness. This is dominated by mandates which only further the gap between people and their access to these educational spaces. I started my first year at university with a plethora of different sessions as part of our university orientation routine. One of which, of course, was our seminar on the university's zero tolerance sexual harassment policy. At the end of the session, we were provided with hypotheticals to solve on Menti, which, for those who don't understand, is this website which allows you to create a quiz, share the link with the class, and then have all the answers be put up on the host's screen. And the host screen, which for us was this giant projector screen at the front of the class. Seconds after the link was opened for responses, the screen was flooded with the most unserious, invasive passes at the woman who was conducting the session. The guys did what they had to, the instructor conveyed what she was mandated to, and guess what? The session was over. Post that, nothing. They said what they wanted to. That's it. On the 30th of January, the UGC released a fresh set of guidelines to the formation and the functioning of equity committees, which essentially deal with the implementation of universally accessible frameworks of both opportunity as well as grievance redressal, citing discrimination of marginalized groups within university spaces, including disability, neurodiversity, gender, caste, and of course, religious minorities. With even the UGC moving towards creating a framework for both inclusion and acceptance, I hope that this policy brief opens the door for future discussions, not only just with the basic who is who and why in the context of safety, but for deeper discussions on pleasure and overall bodily autonomy. Deeply patriarchal behavior that aligns mostly with the idea of reestablishing or feeding into an environment that thrives on a social hierarchy discriminates against anyone who doesn't fit the socially defined standards or conceptions of normalcy, which already plagues these spaces, thanks to both tradition and the internet. So let's get real for a second. We live in a time wherein everything is accessed, understood, and learned from the internet. The manosphere and its ideas are deeply embedded in patriarchy and manipulates young people to behave in a certain, once again, let's say derogatory manner, right? Artificial intelligence or LLMs creating media day by day, which just gets harder and harder to tell apart from reality, strengthens these sexist and misogynist claims. Realistically, where do we go from here? As both a student of law as well as just a student of anything, really, I can say that the conversation has moved far beyond just sex or mental health. We live in a world wherein both are weapons in an arsenal to further social divide. With the lines between rape and sex with one's spouse unclear in the eyes of the law, with the lines between freedom and personal choice and outright rebellion blurred in the eyes of the people, with time constraints so strong that we probably won't even have time for these discussions. Anyways, most educational systems follow the semester, or in my university, the trimester system, which essentially implies that each course set spans 3 months. The first for learning, the second for midterms, and the third for end terms, which leaves us with little to no time being given towards mental health, well-being, activities, sports, art, or even simple dialogue. With such a limited time constraint, I hope this policy would be able to see more than just a 2-hour long Menti session during college orientations. As Reena ma'am had mentioned earlier, this is a collaborative effort, and it takes all of us to invest both our time and our effort into ensuring as such, to make a student's both well-being and safety a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pranad. I think it was very essential for us to bring in a student voice at the center. And I think what you said is very authentic, and it needs to be heard by all the stakeholders who are present in the meeting today. One cannot expect, like, if the child, if the adult, if the student is not able to put their authentic selves out there and this continuous policing that happens, then I don't know if they would be able to do well in their future as well. So thank you for bringing these nuances, Prahlad. And I hope all of us stakeholders have made a note of all that you have spoken.
can
And
ask
please,
Sri
Prahlad, also share the UGC mental health guidelines in your network so that the higher education department also gets a recommendation and all of us can do our bit. Thank you so much, Prahlad. And now we will move to the questions.
Sriparna.
Ah,
Sriparna, she's
So I see that Shripana ji has put up questions and she has to leave. So we will take her questions, and please do mention whom do you want your question to be answered. Mention the name of the speakers. Over to you, Shripana. Are you still there? I think Shripana.
She might have left.
She might have left. Anybody else
Dr.
has any
Rajiv said
questions?
what had raised his hand. And there's no other questions.
Anybody? Any questions? Anything? Any thoughts? Any suggestions?
I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yes,
Yeah. I wanted to ask, and from the experts over here who are also coming from universities, how can we pitch with NCTE, which is the National Council of Teacher Education? We have like been informed that, you know, universities have a mandate to do X percentage of, you know, like cover some part of syllabus from their mandate as well. And if we can, as a part of using, if you know, it's such a clear guideline, if we can go ahead and develop a credit-based course which can be integrated in NCT curriculum, will that work? Do universities pick it up? Just wanted some clarity on that.
Any of the speakers or Ms. Srina ma'am, if you would like to answer the question.
Yeah. I'm not very sure about whether, you know, there is a set kind of a curriculum which is being given out by NCT. NCT is, of course, for teachers' education for getting the degree to be eligible to be teaching in schools. I would be able to speak for UGC. UGC has a framework curriculum for different subject matter. So it is something which each university adopts to itself. It is not a kind of, you know, the curriculum that UGC has. It's not a mandated kind of a thing. It is only the broad framework which different universities can adopt and adapt. NCT, I may be able to get back to me if I can just make some inquiries. I'll be able to get back at a later stage. Maybe I can share the information with Sangeeta ji at a later stage after I speak to my counterpart in Department of School.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Reena
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thanks, Reena ji. And Neha, I also want to share that Enfold is working with NCERT, and we are making small video series which can be aimed directly at children and also directly at teachers. So that can also
Okay.
be used as a training methodology. Or Mr. Subramanian was mentioning, using tech, using videos, using things like that. Now we can use that technology to train the teachers. And these are very large platforms with
Yeah,
hundreds and
absolutely.
thousands of teachers.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Got it. Thank you.
Kiran?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I
Kiran
just
has really supported us a lot in the framing, in the initial parts of this policy, and she guided us and put us in touch with so many people whom we could interview. So yes, Dr. Kiran Agarwal.
Yeah, I just want to know how.
Ma'am, you're
You've
on
gone.
mute.
We lost your voice. Your device is muted, Kiranji.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to know how do you actually what you're thinking about the taking up the sexuality issues with the LGBTQ plus. Because I'm in touch with the college students and they take it this thing very openly, you know. They
Yes.
have accepted already this thing, and whenever they are going to enter in a project, suppose 10 people are there, 10 students are there, everyone has to tell about their gender identity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Kiran, for this, we are very happy to share. And please, if you can come in the afternoon also, we were
Yeah.
able to introduce respect for different identities, different genders, and different sexes in the Karnataka government textbooks on value education, which will be in the hands of all the children from grade 1 to grade 10 in Karnataka. So this sensitivity and this diversity needs to be built in right from the beginning, from the school years, as well as, of course, in the colleges. Respect for the body, respect for one's identities, and boundaries. And people sharing what they want to share when they feel safe. Nobody can demand that I, share something that I don't feel safe sharing in that space. So it is an integral part, and our act, the Trans Persons Rights Act, does talk about this. So we have a legal framework which we can use to bring all of this out.
Okay. Thank you.
Schools, after a petition from a school student to have transgender inclusive education. So I think as we are doing it in school education, it's also imperative that we also move it to higher education. Would also love to hear maybe Ms. Rinaji's, opinion on this.
Yeah, I think about more and more people.
बड़ी एक वो
students-
नहीं होगी.
I think that today's children are more open about their sexuality, about their gender identities, more than us. We are a little traditional, but as we keep on engaging, so we do know that these are the conversations that should happen in our discussion. My daughter is in a ladies all women's college, but yes, she was in an all girls school as well. So it's only now that we realize that we have been what we thought was to be kept inside the closet is something they are very open about it. They talk openly. So I think educational institutions are giving that space for students to be open to accept it about other students and say that if whatever be it queer or LGBTQ, so they have this empathy. That is what I'm seeing in my daughter. And as faculty members, as teachers, I think this is what we that is the training I would say of capacity building that teachers need to undergo because we have been brought up in a straight jacket kind of you know uh, uh, the upbringing, but this is changing, and we need to change it within ourselves. How we do it is again, you have this handbook for children. So maybe for faculty also, we need that kind of some retinals, some flyers for the faculty. That what is normal? I mean, normal is not something which we have been brought up to. We have been told to think about. So I think that is what understanding the sexuality and gender identity is very important.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that, ma'am. I'll just take this one question which seems to be here. Curious to know if any speakers have any experience with parents while advocating for CSE, successful or unsuccessful. We routinely have sessions for parents before Enfold starts going into a school. It is an online session, and several parents, 50, 60, 70 may join in. And we take them through all that we'll be talking about in the classrooms. They are mostly 99% are very happy with what we are doing and teaching, because they feel that they want all this to be told, but they can't. They don't have the vocabulary or the skill. Only once in a while we'll have a parent saying, but don't tell them too much about LGBTQ, too much. Because they fear that by just listening about it, they will somehow become an LGBTQ person, which I don't know why it is a concern. It should not be. We are just all the same, different kinds of human beings with different sexualities, different identities, different genders, and all of that, and we can respect each other for that. Talking of grandparents and their lack and the discomfort with sexuality, one parent shared with me that, what do I do? My 3-year-old, when he holds his penis, my parents tell him, don't touch your penis, otherwise we will cut it off. And that is the beginning of all this silence, this stigma, this shame, this fear, all of this. So we really need to begin very early. And our idea of starting with colleges is that in 4-5 years' time, and slowly, many of them will be parents. And then our next generation would be have much more comfort with their sexuality, respect their bodies, respect the bodies of others. And that is the aim of sexuality education, which includes gender identities and everything. So with that, over to you. We are over time.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And I think with the diversity of the participants here and the number of people who have joined, thank you so much for joining in. And I think it was not just about releasing the policy brief, but also to see how do we move forward in a collaborative way. So if you feel that there is any way, in any which way we can collaborate, Khushi from our team has mentioned that we are building on an online course for higher education. So in case if you want to collaborate and we take this movement from paper to the ground, so do mail us, do reach out to us. And I would like to give a big thanks to Ms. Reena Sonowal. I think seriously, I feel like you have been so patient throughout and, so humble to attend the entire session and have always been there at, just encouraging us to do this. So your constant support is such a, big, just a pat on a back or, just that support itself is so important.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed listening to all the participants, all experts in your field. So we are here to see how we can collaborate and take this forward. This is our institutions, enable our institutions for the future.
Absolutely, ma'am. This is the beginning of, more collaborations and more work to happen in higher education institutes. To end this, I would give the mic to Dr. Sangeeta, who has been also our backbone and has done so much work over the years. I think the brief wouldn't have been possible without her guidance. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you. Thank you. It's like it's one of the steps in the dream coming true that every person, every child, every adolescent, every adult receives a comprehensive sexuality education. So I want to thank, in reverse order, all the speakers who put away extra time. Ms. Reena Sonowal and R. Subramaniam ji, Soni Kuti George, Dr. Shakila Singh, being a grandmother in Australia, she still managed to log in, and Dr. Aditi Arul and our beloved Prahlad. And this brief, when I first heard that we had to write, we proposed the advocacy, we were going to write one brief, but then it turned out that we had to write 4. And the other 3 will be released in the afternoon. This about states. And I was like, we don't have any experience in writing this. What will we do? How will we do this? And by universe will just send the people that you need at that point of time. And Shrikar and Karthik, they from TMI, they contacted us serendipitously, and then here we are. They supported us in a huge way, having studied policy making as in the colleges in the US and elsewhere. And of course, our own internal research team that has the most experience in writing policy briefs, Swagata, Shruti, Gopika, and I'm missing some people's name, but these 3 are coming straight to my head from Enfold's own research team. So with their support and of course the unwavering, Sanjana just took it up. And at one point I said, listen, I can't do any more of this. I'm more of a field person, put me in front with people and I'll talk, but this kind of a thing, no. So in fact, towards the end of it, it was just Sanjana, Karthik and Shrikar who put it all together. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything. yeah, we really hope to see it on the ground.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank
And
you
all
so-
the participants.
Yes.
Yes, and Sriparna and Riddhi and Ashika and people who have been writing, Neha, who have been putting your perspectives here, and Vijaya. It was just so nice.
Yeah. And we're sorry we didn't have a lot of time to engage with the questions or with the thoughts. But this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. And we will also have an online release of the state policy briefs at 3:30 p.m. So do join in for that. And we hope to see more collaborations, more work happening in the higher education space. So thank you all for joining in.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
much. See you.
Thank you, Veena ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiran.